It's funny. It is best shape of your life season unless you're recovering from foot surgery like Jimmy Garoppolo is. I don't know that he's ever in the best shape of his life because it seems like he's perpetually injured because that leads us to what – well, it's true. I mean, it's true. The shoe fits except when you've just had foot surgery on your foot. Then the shoe doesn't fit. Here's Josh McDaniels, coach of the Raiders. And let's watch very closely for the tells and the body language and the demeanor that would let us – come to a conclusion as to whether he truly believes he has no anxiety about his would-be starting quarterback. Have a listen and a look.
I could maybe raise the anxiety level of some fans on the eventual availability of Jimmy. We're about 8 weeks, I guess, away from training camp. Is there a confidence that
I have no anxiety.
Right. Okay. There you go.
You guys might have anxiety.
Is there?
I don't have any anxiety.
Is there a confidence level then that he'll be there in training camp and ready to go?
Yep, I'm not going to put a timeline or a day on anything, but like I said, I have no anxiety.
I know you're confident Jimmy will be back, but when Jimmy does come back, this time that's being missed, how valuable would this time have been to work with guys, and what can you do to kind of build that chemistry, even if he's not on the field necessarily with the guys?
Again, we can't control, this is football, and there's definitely going to be players that miss time, and I mean, just Josh Jacobs wasn't able to do a whole lot last year either, and a decent year. So again, I don't want to overstate any of that stuff. You know what I mean? The relationships, the trust, the communication, the rapport, all that stuff's being built. He's here every day, obviously, and the guys are getting to know each other, which is a great thing. I don't want to overstate or understate the importance of OTAs or anything like that. It's an important time of the year, but there's also a lot of players that can't participate in it. And again, remember, it's voluntary. So there's players that aren't participating in it, across the league. So that doesn't mean that, this year's going to be bad for him and not good for him and all the rest of it. So, like I said, I have no anxiety about it. I'm excited that he's here, really excited that he's here, and looking forward to it when he's out there.
Look, he did his best to hold a smile. And it's funny, one of the things I've learned in recent days is to study the person before they start talking, while they are bracing for when they have to speak. Before the first question, as it was being asked, before he responded to the first question, I should say, you could see he was like, kind of like his eyes were like, stay on target. And we played the clip of Jimmy Garoppolo when he said there was no issue, nothing to see here, everything's fine, when his contract wasn't signed and they sent everybody home from the press conference, had to come back the next day, and everybody thought there was an issue with the contract, and he said no big deal. He does the tell during the question so he gets it out of his system so he can deliver a response that is canned, rehearsed, prepackaged, whatever. How can he say, Myles, he has no anxiety? That's just detached from reality. Your starting quarterback had an injury in December that for whatever reason he did not have surgery on. It needed it. You agreed to sign him and give him an $11.25 million signing bonus, sight unseen, under the representation, I would assume, from his agent that his foot is fine. He shows up, fails the physical. You find out the foot isn't fine. He has surgery on the foot. We're only 2 months removed from that. He's not able to participate in the OTAs. How can you say you have no anxiety? When you think of the things that keep you staring at the ceiling at night, if you're a football coach, the potential availability or unavailability of the most important player on the field is something that would give you anxiety. And if he's currently not available because he had surgery 2 months ago, that should give you at least some anxiety. On a scale of 1 to 100, it at least has you in the high single digits as it goes to anxiety. So you can't say you have no anxiety. Because if you say you have no anxiety, you're either clueless or you're lying.
Well, unless you have addendum G, and then if you have to pull that ripcord, then you have no anxiety because then you're going to suck and maybe you get Caleb Williams, right? I mean, that's the way that you would maybe think of it, is I have no anxiety. Or, I mean, as he said later on in that press conference, is I have very good information that makes me feel comfortable. So that's why I have no anxiety. And I guess that's it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is a player who is injury prone. And I don't like saying that about guys, but it's absolutely true. I mean, if we think back to the time where he was filling in for Tom Brady when Tom Brady got suspended, he got hurt then. And Jacoby Brissett had to come in and start 2 games of that Tom Brady 4-game suspension, right, in 2016. So this is something that has been going on throughout Jimmy Garoppolo's career. It's why the Colts did not want to trade for him last year, because they knew that he wasn't going to be available for the offseason program after he had shoulder surgery. And this is just, again, it's something that has gone on and on and on throughout Jimmy Garoppolo's career. And I would say that even if this rapport, as Josh McDaniels was saying, is being built between Jimmy Garoppolo and different receivers because they're in building together, that really doesn't necessarily translate to on-field chemistry. Look no further than Matthew Stafford and Allen Robinson last year with the Los Angeles Rams. I think we all think Allen Robinson is a decently talented receiver, right? I mean, those 2 guys had absolutely no chemistry and had a disastrous year, in part because Matthew Stafford was not available to participate in the offseason program and a lot of training camp, really, and they did not develop that chemistry. So I hear what McDaniels is saying, but I don't quite buy it when it comes to that rapport and that chemistry that needs to be established between a new quarterback and his receivers.
And I go back to that quote that you shared. I have very good information that would tell me we're going to be fine. Unlike the information that I had back in March when we committed to give him an $11.25 million signing bonus, and we found out that my information was very bad about the condition of his foot. So there is reason to be concerned. And we get back to the theme that started the show, best shape of my life season. This is one of the reasons I have tremendous respect for professional football players. They work to get themselves into peak physical condition, and then they go do something with their bodies that necessarily will cause their peak physical condition to become impaired. And that's the thing with Jimmy G. The anxiety level now, as he recovers from foot surgery, is different from the anxiety level that necessarily will apply when he starts playing, because he has proven time and again in the position other than kicker and punter that is the most protected in all of football, he can't stay healthy. He can't avoid contact. He can't help getting himself injured. All the way back to 2016, playing in that handful of games when Tom Brady was suspended. 2018 with the San Francisco 49ers, week 3 at Arrowhead Stadium, decides he's going to drop his shoulder and deliver a blow to a defensive back of the Chiefs who wanted to tackle him instead of just walking his ass out of bounds, and he tears his ACL when he does it. The stupidest of all injuries, one of the stupidest, being tough guy that's got to exert some sort of physical, but it is. Robert Griffin III did the same thing when he was playing for your Cleveland Browns. You remember that, week 1. Against the Eagles, I think it was. Dropped his shoulder on the way out of bounds and injured his shoulder, and that was it. That was it for him. That was it. It was done. And it's just stupid. It's stupid. You have to be available for your team as the quarterback. And there it is, September 23, 2018, the ACL. Wow. And look at all the other injuries. Guy can't stay healthy. And his contract doesn't pay him high-end money. And, this is one of the reasons why. You can't count on him, which makes the availability of a plan B all the more critical. I think that's one of the reasons why we're getting serenity now from Josh McDaniels. He doesn't want to continue that dialogue to the next logical step. If you do have anxiety, why is your backup not someone other than Brian Hoyer? That's the question I think he's trying to avoid.
Yes. Well, and it makes sense as a question, right? And I tend to think that if the Raiders had known heading into that negotiating window in free agency that this was going to be an issue with Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe they would have made a bigger play to keep Jarrett Stidham. And instead, Jarrett Stidham, they let him go, and he goes and signs with the Broncos, and he may take over for Russell Wilson by December. So it's just a really different situation that you could have been in based on where you are now. I mean, God love Brian Hoyer, and I do love Brian Hoyer. Fun fact, his mom and my mom used to work together like eons ago back in Cleveland, and Brian Hoyer is a Cleveland kid, so God love him. But that's not really going to scare you as an opponent when you're looking at a quarterback depth chart between Brian Hoyer, Aiden O'Connell, and Chase Garbers behind Jimmy Garoppolo. And frankly, I don't even know how much Jimmy Garoppolo is going to scare you at this point. So, yeah, the Raiders are not really in a great situation. And if I were a Raiders fan, I think I would have a little bit more anxiety than Josh McDaniels seems to have, or at least claims he has at this point.
And that is the one critical thing to keep in mind. We discussed this earlier in the week, but it bears repeating. Less than 2 hours into the negotiating window on Monday, March 13, a deal was in place for Jimmy Garoppolo to sign with the Raiders. So when you walk through that door, and that's how quickly it moves once they wave whatever flag it is that starts the race. Green flag, white flag, I don't know. Black flag, probably not that one. But
in F1,
green.
it's lights
Let's
out and
with
away
green.
we go.
Green means go. So the bottom line is this. Jarrett Stidham, during that same period of time, generally reaches the deal with the Broncos. You've got other quarterbacks who were available to be signed that pick their other spots, and you don't find out until days after the fact that you wouldn't have reached an agreement with Jimmy Garoppolo if you had known the truth about his foot. You would have done something else because presumably you want your quarterback for his first year with the team to be available and healthy in the offseason. But it's on the Raiders to not even have the appropriate level of skepticism. The guy just injured his foot. We don't know how healthy it is. We're not going to commit to this many millions of dollars without having a chance to look at his foot. It's one of the flaws in the system. Everybody's moving fast in that 52-hour negotiating window, and then the dust settles, and then you do the physical. And then you find out, oh no, this guy's got an unhealed foot injury that requires surgery. Yes, it should be something that induces anxiety because it never happens.
Well, I think you're saying something a little worse than, oh no, at that point, right? But I think in the Raiders' defense, there was discussion of Jimmy Garoppolo potentially being available for the 49ers late, in the season. Like if they had reached the Super Bowl, would Jimmy Garoppolo have potentially been available to be a backup quarterback? So, I mean, it's not like everybody knew like, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo's foot definitely needs surgery, So, I mean, the Raiders don't need me to defend them, but I think that is a factor when you look at everything that led up to what Jimmy Garoppolo agreed to initially versus then what the Raiders discovered. I do think that that's at least a little bit of a part of it.
There's enough there, though, that they should have been scratching the surface because remember when the injury first happened, right. Kyle Shanahan said himself he needs surgery. And then the report from Shefty the next day was he doesn't. And we know that Jimmy Garoppolo typically resists surgery. The shoulder surgery was woefully delayed, and I think he wanted to. And look, I don't blame him. I don't want surgery unless I absolutely positively need it. Minor surgery. Definition of minor surgery. Surgery performed not on you or anyone you care about. That's what minor surgery is. Surgery is surgery. Right. You're opening up your body. They're either putting stuff in or taking stuff out, exposing the inside of your body to light and air and potential infections. No, I don't want it if I don't have to have it. And Jimmy Garoppolo waited, and he ended up needing it, and then he quickly got it. And then he quickly got it because he knew the Raiders were not going to pay him a penny until he had it, and they still possibly won't pay him a penny if this thing isn't properly healed at the end of this process of rehab, whatever. He could go on the PUP list or NFI. I don't know how it would work with a lingering injury from another team, but if he's not on the 53-man roster come week one, the clock is ticking on him possibly not making a penny from the Oakland Raiders or the Las Vegas Raiders.
Whoa.
Oh, my God. How long ago did they move? Hey, I'm at the point where I can blame any of that stuff on advancing age. I'm old. I'm confused. I thought they were still in Oakland. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.